Money FM 89.3, the best of Saturday mornings. Wide World on Money FM 89.3.
The clandestine oil shipping hub funneling Iranian crude oil to China. Wow, what a story this was. It broke late last year on Bloomberg, and we are so fortunate to have two of the reporters with us who worked on this story. Serene Chong, who's the oil trading team leader for Bloomberg News in Asia, and Weilun Soon, the oil and shipping reporter at Bloomberg News. There is a dark fleet of vessels operating on the edge of a major maritime thoroughfare not too far from here, moving hundreds of millions of barrels of sanctioned oil and risking an environmental catastrophe. Serene and Weilun, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Oh, don't be shy. Come on.
I have to say, I got to kick this off. I thought it was a masterful piece of investigative journalism.
Unbelievable.
Beautifully laid out, beautifully researched, terrific use of graphics. It is a complex situation. Who wants to give us the overview? Serene or Weilun? Serene, give us the overview of what the dark fleet is and where is it?
Sure, yeah. Maybe I'll kick us off. So basically, over the last couple of years, we've noticed that China has been taking a lot of Iranian oil. Iran's flows to China, is the second biggest source for Chinese refiners in the world, just after Russia. And, when we looked at the customs data of what is being imported into China, we noticed that actually not a drop of Iranian oil on paper officially goes to China. And we were wondering, okay, that's interesting. Why is that? When you dig deeper, you actually realize that a lot of this Iranian oil is being rebranded as Malaysian oil, and it's going into China as if it's from Malaysia. So that kind of got us thinking and got us digging a bit further into what exactly is happening. And, as we looked at satellite data, as we looked at ship tracking data, we realized that there is this huge hub of very old tankers that, is just off Johor. So it's about 60 kilometers or so off east of Johor. And this hub is actually where a lot of the Iranian oil is being transferred ship to ship into other vessels that then bring, this Iran oil into China. And in this process of doing ship to ship transfers, the origin of Iranian oil gets switched out and rebranded into Malaysian oil. That's kind of where it all started for us. And as we dig deeper and deeper, and we made a trip down to, we took quite like a 10 plus hours boat ride out to these spots. We were very, very surprised and shocked at what we actually saw.
And took photos of the ship-to-ship transfers.
Yeah, just two brief questions to set this up, and then we want to dig deeper.
Sure.
How many years has this been going on first, and how much oil per year do you reckon is shifting this illegal oil to China from Iran?
Sure. So this ever since the last Donald Trump presidency period, Trump was actually the one who how should I say? He actually kind of withdrew from the JCPOA, which is the Iranian nuclear deal, in 2019. So at that time, Iran became subject to sanctions and restrictions again. So it was at that time, from that time onwards, China started to slowly but surely, take more and more Iranian oil, because China is opposing these unilateral sanctions that's been rolled out by...
So basically 2019.
Yeah, so from 2019 until now, it has been steadily increasing. The supply chain has been slowly being built up over time. So, it was at first not a very big thing. The volumes were much lower, but then it started building up more and more. So, for the period of Jan to October of 2024, which is the period that, we tabulated the volumes for, we saw about 350 million barrels change hands in this Malaysian offshore hub. And that is
offshore transfer.
Yes, 350 million barrels during January to October, and that is the equivalent of more than $20 billion worth of crude oil.
Wow, extraordinary. Weilun, to bring you into the conversation. So to recap, we've got this sanctioned oil coming from Iran, shipping up or stopping just off the coast of Malaysia. Then China fleets pick it up, take it back to China. This is sanctioned oil. And I'm reading the piece, an extraordinary piece, and all I keep thinking is, what are the legal ramifications? What can Malaysia, not so much Singapore, it's out of their jurisdiction, but what can ASEAN or the international maritime community do about this? Are they breaking any laws?
So maybe we should just put it out there that ship-to-ship transfers in themselves is not an illegal move, right? A lot of legitimate actors, they do actually do ship-to-ship transfers because sometimes the ports might be too small to receive the ships that are coming in, so they break bulk. But in this case, the ship-to-ship transfer that's happening off Malaysian waters is in its EEZ, which is the exclusive economic zone. Okay, I think I got that correct. So this is where Malaysia or any coastal state would have a claim to the zone if it's in its economic interest, which is different from territorial waters, which is around ports. And the reason why these ships are doing these transfers, because it's sanctioned oil in the EEZ, is so that they can stay away from territorial reach, sovereign reach of these coastal states. And so it sort of falls into this legal gray area, right? Where you wonder how much enforcement and surveillance capabilities coastal states would have in the EEZ. Somewhere in the international maritime law, it states that states would have the right to take enforcement action if it harms economic interests. Whereas here in this case, we have not seen a clear case that harms the coastal states' interests. But we do have to recall that I think in the past 1 or 2 years, we have seen incidents at sea involving the dark fleet that could bring about really serious consequences. So we had the Pablo, which was in Southeast Asian waters in between Malaysia and Indonesia, that exploded, and 3 of its crew of, I think, 24 people, 3 of them died. So there's a real human cost to it.
When was that?
This was, if I don't recall wrongly, 2022. Mm-hmm. And in 2020, I think that might have been 2023. Yeah. And in 2024, we have a really legitimate above-board kind of tanker that sort of collided with a dark fleet that was in this area that's off Malaysia's waters. Thankfully, nothing happened, but both ships were set ablaze. The legitimate one had to be towed back to Singapore for repairs. So there's serious economic damages waiting to be resolved. And until today, I think the insurers of this legitimate fleet are still trying to figure out how they can lay claim to this accident that has had an impact on them, but they were unable to find out who the owners of this dark fleet ship is.
A ship that doesn't exist. Technically.
It's not supposed to exist.
And just to clarify for our listeners, the offshore collision that happened last year that caused a disruption around Singapore, that was between 2 legitimate vessels, not dark fleet vessels, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
But go on.
And so we're talking with Serene Chong and Weilun Soon, both reporters for Bloomberg News, about this dark fleet of vessels operating off the east coast of Malaysia, transferring illegal sanctioned oil from Iran to ships that then go up to China to offload there. Tell us about what your reporting was like. How have you proven this? And I might just add, if somebody goes online and looks at your Bloomberg story, there's a lot of data journalism there. But what were the steps that you took to say, hey, we've got to actually figure this out and prove it that it's happening? Weilun, would you like to take us through some of the steps you used?
Sure.
And the technology?
So I joined the reporting of this story sort of midway through, and by then we were trying to make sense of the reams and reams of data that we collected in the months prior. I think the starting point, correct me if I'm wrong, Serene, is that we started looking at satellite images of the ships that were going through this area. And it's really from this free service. It's really fun to look at when you look at the ships from above. So over 4 years, we collected those images, and then we started to see certain shapes appearing in the water. I mean, ships, if you imagine from the top down, you can see that they look like a little pencil, if you would. And if you see two pencils sitting next to each other, then you wonder why are ships trying to get so close to each other in such a big, vast body of water, right? And that's when we know that it's a ship-to-ship transfer, especially if it involves two big ships of the similar sizes. So in this story, we are interested to look at very large crude carriers, or VLCCs for short. They are the ones that are carrying 2 million barrels of oil each day. And once we figure out how many pairs of these ships were there in each of these images, we can then tabulate how much oil was being transferred. So every pair of ship would be able to transfer 2 million barrels of crude oil to the other one that's waiting to take all of those barrels upwards to China. So that is one way that we approach the story. And of course, we have to back this up with official data. And I think Serene mentioned that officially, China doesn't really show that it takes Iranian oil. But we do know that it takes 1.1 million barrels per day of oil from Malaysia. But if you look at Malaysia's production, there's only 508,000 barrels per day that Malaysia produces. So,
total.
So there is this disconnect over there. And then we go back and we look at ship tracking data. So on top of satellite images, we look at how ships are moving around the world. And we realize that a lot of them are doing this two-leg journey to complete this entire trade, where you see certain ships sending out signals at the start of their journey from around the Persian Gulf, which is where Iran is. They load on the crude oil. We can tell that from ship tracking data and perhaps from how low the ship is sitting in water, because there's weight on it. It comes down to Southeast Asia. It stops there. It meets up with another ship. And then the ship tracking data will show that this other ship will then go northwards to China. And this ship that came from the Persian Gulf will then go back again to repeat the same route. Yeah.
It's fascinating.
That is unbelievable.
It is. Yeah. Let's look at the geopolitical and environmental perspective, Serene. Playing devil's advocate, Iran would say, we're sanctioned, right? We've got these US sanctioned. We need money and we need buyers for our oil. China doesn't recognize these US-imposed sanctions, and we're operating in international waters. We're not imposing upon anyone's national sovereignties or coastlines. What's the problem? What would you say to that, geopolitically or environmentally?
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting point that you brought up, and that is precisely why this trade continues in such a large way. Iran, clearly one of its most important revenue streams is oil, right? It is a huge producer, and it was at one point one of the top 3 OPEC producers, right? So Iran definitely needs the money. And on the other hand, China has so many oil refineries making everything from fuels like gasoline, diesel, all the way to petrochemicals, which goes into everything.
Plastics and things.
Absolutely everything. You
which
cannot
we all buy
imagine.
and consume around the world.
Yes, not only plastics, but even paint solvents, even parts of your car, parts of even like everything, your comb, your dental floss. Like that is how important oil is, right? And so there's no stopping the flow of this oil from a willing seller to a willing buyer. And China, of course, is more than willing to take this oil at a discounted price, right? Because nobody else in the world is going to want to or dare to take it so openly. So there is definitely a huge incentive for this flow to continue. So in terms of geopolitics, between these two countries, I think they have always been long-term allies, and they will continue to be. It's just how the supply chain in the middle gets set up in a way that, is out of reach of American as well as Western sort of forces, right? So, like Weilun very clearly mentioned and described, this is just, exactly one way in which, this supply chain is being set up, right, with this whole host of vessels doing ship-to-ship transfers and whatnot. But there's also the financial side of it. A lot of this oil is purchased in yuan denominated, not USD denominated, and it is paid for using small banks as well in China. So they are very much set apart from the way
the global banking system.
Yes. They've basically carved out a niche for themselves, right? Yeah. So in terms of geopolitics, this this close connection between Tehran and Beijing is here to stay. There will be, of course, hiccups, and as you can tell, the Trump administration is going to be back for a second term next week. We are all excited and also concerned about the turbulence that the potential policies that will come out. But this geopolitical relationship is here to stay. And in terms of Asia, as you rightly pointed out, Southeast Asia is very much in focus because it is kind of, I wouldn't say assisting in this trade.
But it's on our doorstep.
Yeah, but it's on our doorstep, and it is very much an integral part of this supply chain, right? I think it is, like Weilun mentioned, it's very tough because this ship-to-ship is happening in the EEZ. It's not in territorial waters. And it's a vast area of the ocean. Like, even when we went out on our little boat, we sailed for hours before we got there. And once we got to this spot, they're all clustered in a little spot. Not so little, but in a very tight spot in the ocean. When we got there, we sailed for 2 hours and we just saw supertanker after supertanker after supertanker.
How many are there sort of now, would you guess, on an average day or week?
It's quite fluid because the tankers don't want to hover for too long as well, right? They want to go there, do what they have to do, and then go on their way. So at any point of time, there can be 50 to 100 tankers.
50 to 100.
Right? I know, right? But of course, the ocean is also a very, very big place. Yeah. And it's not like, they are like rubbing shoulders and all that. But, you can sail through this cluster and you can keep sailing for a long time. Yeah. And you will just see tanker after tanker.
Amazing.
And we were very fortunate when we got there that there was a ship-to-ship transfer happening right before our eyes. Yeah. And it's not it's not easy for us to preempt when these things will happen. Like Weilun mentioned, 2 million barrels trying to be transferred from one vessel to the other. It takes about 48 hours. But it's not easy to preempt which tankers will be doing ship-to-ship transfers because a lot of them turned off their transponders. Mm-hmm. They turned off their signals because they don't want to be scrutinized so closely by authorities, right? So they go dark. That's the term, going dark. So they go dark, they hover around the area, loiter around the area, and they wait for another tanker to come, side by side.
I want to jump in quickly, Weilun, because we're against the clock. Okay, geopolitics is one thing, but us, Singapore, Malaysia, Southeast Asia, we could potentially be facing an environmental disaster, couldn't we? Because these ship-to-ship transfers are not subject to the kind of environmental regulations that they would be if they were in dock inshore. What is the potential environmental threat that we face from the dark fleet?
If we just look at Singapore alone, a few months ago, there was this incident where there was this oil spill that affected Sentosa, right? The whole beach was closed for 2 months, a few weeks. And that amount over there is just, if I'm not wrong, 40 tons of oil that was spilled. A single very large crude carrier can carry as much as 700 times more than that. And
wow.
And we're talking about Singapore, a relatively rich country that has the wherewithal, the authority to clean up oil spills,
and is located right here that can respond right away.
Exactly.
Right.
And just imagine if this happens in a country that is not as wealthy as we are. If it happens on a large scale, we don't know what kind of responses that the government can take to contain oil spill, number one, and to stop it from affecting the shores, affecting people's livelihoods, because very likely you would have fishermen, you would have port operators, you would have commercial merchant vessels along the coast. And these, you can imagine, the economic consequences will be huge. And of course, the environmental ones will be even more severe. You have loss of sea life and a lot of follow-on effects from that. I think the worst-case scenario would be it would necessitate a shutdown of the thoroughfare if it's a really, really serious oil spill.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's one of the busiest shipping channels in the world.
Exactly.
We got about 15 seconds. I'm sorry, Serene, but where do we go from here? What can governments do? What should governments be doing? Either Malaysia, Singapore, whoever in Southeast Asia. First of all, what can they do? Anything?
It really depends on their capacity. So I think, Malaysia's Coast Guards could patrol the area a bit more. I think it's out of Singapore's jurisdiction, so I don't think we would do all that much. But I think, even the big supertankers, the other vessels that are going past this flotilla can provide information on what they see,
Good point.
how old the tankers are, what they see that's happening over there. And all this will, create a better amount of surveillance on this.
Almost citizen journalism amongst the maritime community.
Patrol.
That's right.
Yeah.
We have to leave it there. Thank you both so much for being with us. Serene Chong and Weilun Soon, both of Bloomberg News. Fascinating story on the Dark Fleet. I encourage everyone to get online, Google the story, and read it. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.